So there's a saying that I really like by Charles Bukowski. When you get beat up long enough, you tend to say what you really mean. And I feel like that really captures the essence of my gambling career. And I get many requests to talk about poker, blackjack. I have a popular video, my most popular video, where I explained a system that a fellow flea. A flea is a term that the casinos use to refer to their most loyal customers. I gambled for 28 years. March 27, 2022, I quit. Dealing is what I did when I got broke. Seemed like an obvious career path. Dealt for the World Series of Poker, dealt blackjack, dealt dice. More towards the end of my career, I guess. And like I said, the casinos affectionately label their clients fleas. These are the people that linger on the rail. So I'm not an old guy, but I come into gambling maybe at the tail end of the transition from when Vegas was great this story is about an individual that drove from California on his 21st birthday, as I did. I went to the casino on my 21st birthday, and I won. Maybe that was the hook. Was a regular night. This kid comes and sits down at my table. Youngish looking kid. I didn't ask him for his ID. We started playing. He purchased $300 in chips from me. And we started playing. I mean, we were just shooting the shit a little bit. He had some questions. I feel like most people are intimidated by gambling in general. I mean, it might even be what stops them from becoming a dealer. It's definitely not like being a banker. Mistakes happen. I mean, that was kind of the running joke at being a dealer. That's why God made floormen and the eye in the sky. I've seen a lot of really bad mistakes, but I've never seen a dealer fired for a mistake. So he was asking me some questions, and my boss, the floor man, comes over my shoulder. Hey, would you like a player's card? And the kid gives him his ID, and the floor man goes and takes it and goes and makes him a card. So the kid was kind of, like I said, asking me some questions. And as a dealer, I mean, I feel like I'm a dealer of the people. I mean, I've sat on both sides of the table. I mean, I wanted you to win. I wanted the casino to lose. And if I liked you, I mean, I definitely wanted you to win. I never wanted to take anybody's money. And, but I mean, asking the dealer for advice was always kind of tricky because, if they lost, they'd be like, he told me to do it. So oftentimes I would say, well, the book says, do this. That way I could just give them a hint of maybe what they should do. And it was up to them. Most of the time the other flea bags at the table would share the correct play, or what they thought the correct play would be. Like I said, I mean, being a player and then becoming a dealer seemed like a natural thing to do. I mean, I could count to 21. I was good at flicking the cards at the dealer when I got a stiff shoved in my culo. So I was I was qualified. But these were my people. I mean, I was a gambler first, for sure. Used to be, I mean, you could go on break, put on a jacket, or take off your badge, and you could buy right into the game that you're playing, or dealing, rather. One of the last jobs that I had, I mean, you could go on break and gamble. And I did that many times. I would go to the cage, get my tokes, and turn around and gamble them. It was crazy. But back to the story. So the boss comes back and says, "Oh, happy birthday." Kind of pitches his card to him and his ID. And the kid was doing well. I mean, he had $300. I mean, if you deal long enough, you certainly see lots of things. But the main thing you see is they buy in, you get all their money, and they go away. So, being a dealer, generally you work like 20 or 40 minutes at a table, then you go on break. And the kids started winning some money. And being a gambler, that started to take over. Talk to the kid a little bit, I want him to tip me, right? So, I tried to offer him some advice, right? So I told him, I go, look, when you win some money, you don't take all the money back. You take some of the casino's money that they paid you and put it on your bet. It's called stacking it up. but keep a little something for yourself. Play on the casino's funds. And the kid listened. I mean, that was the thing. Most people are really in their comfort zone when it comes to gambling. They'll bet the same $5 all night long, have some drinks. Clearly, they're not addicted to gambling, right? It's the funny thing, like, it's so similar to like where I am. You know, I'm in Cambodia currently, and oh, how long you staying? Right? That's the opening line as a dealer. You see the Smiths, right? Oh, how many nights more are you here for? Night 3. Oh, I gotta go to the ATM. Oh, I'm down a lot of money. It's the same thing here. I'm here for the weekend. But this was this kid's 21st birthday. So, a couple hours in, I mean, he was, I don't know, up maybe $1,000. And you could kind of tell. I mean, it was a game of mine to, in my head, I would be playing games, you know, pretending I was the player. What would I do in this spot? Counting cards. I got to keep myself entertained. It is really a job. It's like working the drive-thru at McDonald's. I mean, there's not a whole lot to it. You pay a $5 blackjack or a $5,000 blackjack. It's every day. It's your job. It's pouring rain outside. I hope it's not competing with my vlog. But you got to do something to keep yourself entertained while you're dealing. Dealing's an easy job. So I was rooting for the kid to do well. And this was in an interesting time. This event happened. There's this thing in the casino business called sweating the roll. In the olden times, the box man, you never wanted to lose the roll, right? Maybe it's known widely. I mean, of course, corporations have taken over, but there would be maybe somebody that's put up the roll. And as a dealer, they would call a dealer that would give away the money. They would have all these names so that way the customers wouldn't know what you were exactly talking about. And when the floor man would come over to see if I need a fill, he wouldn't look over my shoulder, but he'd look over and go, "Oh, you're a real rock star tonight," implying that I was dumping the table to a player. And in the casino business, they don't necessarily like that. It's called singing. And they don't mind losing some money, but they don't want to lose like $1 million to some guy that walks through the door with 100, right? They don't mind losing $1 million to somebody that comes in with $1 million. And I'd been at this table all night. At that point, the kid's probably up, I don't know, $3,000-ish. And like I said, the floor mat had already made some comments to me about this. And I was like, hey, you're doing great, trying to encourage the kid because the floor man will try to make things uncomfortable. And this was during a period where they wouldn't, swap out the dealer, mid-game. We were in the corporate era of the casinos, so I mean they wouldn't do anything overly nasty to the players. But he would comment, oh wow, you're doing great. And I mean, this was a lot of money for this kid. I mean, he said, oh man, I drove all the way from California with my paycheck. And this is when I'm pretty sure you could still cash your check from California in Vegas, even today, 2023. But he had said to me, he said, I brought my paycheck from California, cashed it at the cage, and then turned it into chips, and was playing with me now at that point, maybe 3 or 4 hours. Starting to stack up chips like Rain Man, the movie Rain Man. And he was doing like I told him, putting a little extra on top. And then I offered some more advice. I was like, well, look, here's another piece of strategy, right? So I said, look, because he was like, he would play one hand. He was betting like a couple $100 a hand at that point. He'd play one hand. He'd start with a black chip, win a few hands. And I said, look, this is what you do. I said, play two hands. I said, that way, I mean, if I get 21, you're going to lose all the money. But if you get, if I get like 17 and you get one good hand and one bad hand, you won't lose your bet. You'll break even on it, and it'll like save one or the other. And the kid, you could see the light bulb go off in his head instantly. It was like, oh. And so there it was. I mean, it was getting towards the end of my shift. And the kids got the casino for, I don't know, $10,000-12,000 at that point. And again, this is not a lot of money for the casino, but they never really want somebody to come in and just take their money with no money invested. And then I put the kid on fire. And it was about, I don't know, 10 minutes-ish, somewhere in there, 10, 20 minutes. And the kid had the casino at that point for about $60,000, $70,000. And the rack, I had almost dumped the rack to him. I mean, this wasn't a high-limit game, so the rack, I believe, only had about under 100 G's, somewhere in there. And they had called for a fill. And the kid was playing like $2,000, two hands at that point. And that's the thing about blackjack. It just comes on quick. I mean, you win 7, 8 hands in a row. If you stack it up, that's when you really get them. You never really beat them 8 hours straight. You end up doing well, and then boom, it hits you, and then, Normally it's time to hit the cage and hightail it out of there. So they brought the chips over. Security brought the chips over, and the kid just about had about 100,000, and I said, hey man, happy birthday. Look, take my advice and get the F out of here, because my boss was getting a little miffed. He kicked a fucking trash can. He's like across the pit. It's like, what the fuck? Like, I was like, don't mind him. I was like, go buy yourself some hookers and go enjoy your money and have a great birthday. And he was like, yeah, because I mean, even when I was a young gambler, you get so caught up and you don't understand, like, the until you're back in the car, holy shit, I was up all this money. And you could tell the kid was like, oof, his eyes were huge, he was like, oh my God. And he gave me some, chips, handful of chips. I was like, oh, thanks, dude, And he turns out of the chair and he goes, oh. I was like, what's up? And he goes, where do I buy a Rolex? I said, the Forum Shop's over at Caesars, dude.